After the 1988 Sumgait massacre, the peak of anti-Armenian violence in Azerbaijan occurred in January 1990 with the pogroms against the Armenian population of Baku. On January 11, demonstrations organized by the Popular Front of Azerbaijan began in the city, during which anti-Armenian slogans were openly chanted. By January 13, the demonstrations had escalated into mass violence. Organized groups began systematically searching for Armenians in the streets of Baku, resulting in widespread killings and forced displacement. According to various reports, hundreds of Armenians were killed during those days. We are honored to speak with Armenian-American author Liyah Babayan, whose family was forcibly displaced from their home in Baku during these tragic events. Today's conversation is an opportunity to hear her story in her own words, not only as a history, but as lived experience. Ms. Babayan, thank you for accepting our invitation and for connecting with us today to share your story.
Thank you. The power of connectivity on Facebook and platforms worldwide. I am so thankful for them because we can have these conversations that are very important to document, not just my own and my family's story, but many stories to document them is very important. So I want to thank your foundation and for your school for the invitation. I believe it's very important. You know, it's so easy to, it's so human nature to forget naturally because we are far removed from what happened 36 years ago. I am far removed geographically from the geographic memories and from the different identity politics there. We are on the other side of the world. It is very easy for survivors to both forget in their human memory, but also forget in their spiritual memory to heal and move on. But I find it very important to document and to every year make sure to do a tribute or to honor in language, to bring to life in language what occurred. And sometimes it's not just on the anniversary date. And a lot of times with the work I do with the book, I travel a lot. I speak about pogroms quite often throughout the year in the United States.
Are the people open to hear this type of stories?
People are. If you follow my posts on my page, you notice the only people that have anything very negative to say or to discredit. I find it very interesting to me that they are discrediting someone that has lived and is the evidence of these ethnic campaigns, killing campaigns. It's not like you're discrediting history from the 4th century or the 10th century. We are talking about within our lifetimes, and there is evidence with the living people, their stories. So I find people are very interested. People are also here in the States, a lot of, depending on the generation, there are some generations at that time, they paid attention, of course, they saw what was happening with the collapse of the Soviet Union. But because of the blockade on media and journalism in Baku at that time and in the Soviet Union in general, very little was shared through media with the international community. So people are surprised that living in a free society, they still are not aware of so much what happened in the world. The younger generations, I speak at a lot of high schools, a lot of 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders here in the United States, in different states, American students, my work is not Armenian diaspora specific. Typically, Armenian diaspora knows of our history and generations of genocide, atrocities. But it is more, my audience is more that large American population, and the young generation is very surprised to hear of something happening like this in the 90s, in the open to the world to know and to see, similar to like Bosnia and many other genocides that took place. With the Armenian diaspora as well, so much of the American Armenian diaspora, their lineages from the 1915 genocide of the grandparents and parents, great-grandparents that survived, migrated to the States. And they are surprised to find out and hear of the waves of ethnic cleansing and the waves of genocide policy continuing after 1915 all the way into the 90s. And so they are very surprised as well to hear about this particular Sumgait and Baku history, because as diaspora members, we are connected, and we are also divided because we are not necessarily connected to communities of our diaspora that have been, I want to say, blended into like colonial nations or with colonial language. So, for example, Russian-speaking Baku Armenians maybe, or we are not necessarily connected through the historic ties. We are an identity, but maybe the migration and the movement of our ancestry has taken us into different directions, like South America or Europe or Africa, or in my case, Idaho, Twin Falls, Idaho. So we are very close to Glendale, California. We are a drive away, a couple of hours, maybe 14, 15 hours, but we are very distant in our ability to understand the history of what brought us here, especially as a Baku Armenian.
You were very young, like you were just a child when the situation in Baku shifted very dramatically. How did you first sense that something was wrong? Like, what was the trigger?
I was a young child, and I think when something unstable occurs in a child's life, there is a mechanism built in, I think, in children that we, some people, they call it trauma, but also there is a higher level of alertness or hypervigilance where the child is, at a very high survival mode and picking up on adult behavior. And some children, they disassociate. That's their coping mechanism as well. I have siblings and cousins and young people I know that lived through the same experience, and their memories like blank because of the way they reacted maybe to what was happening. I remember specifically being a very kind of just free child and playing and not being aware of the adult world, right? Because children, they are just in their own like existence, and we play and we do what we are told because we have to eat or take a nap. But for the most part, I remember this is already after I've gone to preschool and I've socialized and been out in the world and seen other adults and children. But one thing that was the sensory, I guess, signal to me that something was happening is I used to sing Armenian songs just freely and play. And we were little, we would tie like bantik or something on our head to be the bride, and to dance like traditional dances. And we had a balcony at my grandmother's house and at our house as well. But I remember singing outside my grandma's balcony like patriotic songs that were very common to sing. This is around the time of Karabakh uprising, and my mother, grabbing my head and my mouth like very hard and pulling me inside the house and saying, stay away from the windows, from the balcony, and don't sing. And I thought that's very strange because in our family, in most Armenian families, music is there in the background always. We don't need to have a special occasion. There's singing, there is music all the time. And we come from a very musical family too. So I thought that's very strange. Another very clear memory of mine that I thought was what it was until I understood it to be actually a violent act against one of our family members. Is I was at my grandmother's house, and in the keyhole of the door, we had like a little stepping stool. I would step on there and look in the keyhole. It was very exciting to see like family members coming home. And this particular afternoon moment, I saw from the balcony my uncle going around the corner of the block of the building of that like district, and I knew within a couple minutes he will be at the door. So I was really excited to pull up the like stulchik, the little step, and look in the keyhole. When I looked in that keyhole, I saw a very bloody head from one whole side, just bleeding. All I saw was like his eyeball and a very bloody head. I don't write about this in the book. The uncle I write about, because his wife, she was tragically murdered during the pogroms. I write about her, my Aunt Lola. But my uncle, I remember seeing that, and it was so... well, as a child, I've never seen that much blood. You know, you get hurt, you get a little bit on your knees or like here, falling. I never saw that before, and so I just froze up, and my grandmother kind of, took over the situation and helped him and everything, but he said something fell on him. He said something fell on me, and I think he was saying that to protect my memory. I believe he was attacked or stabbed in the head or in the face, and he was really trying to protect me. But that was the first immediate violence I witnessed to our family, not understanding that there is this going on in the streets. And just moments before that, I saw him walking clearly, safely around, further away. So that altered my sense of safety and sense of vulnerability of the adults around me, their fears. I started pick up on their fears after that. And then after that, it was, you could just see it. The streets were full of people, the chants, you can pick up that what the adults are whispering about, that it is not this is not a safe time. You might not understand the political language or the strategy the adults are planning to save the family. I don't understand that, but you can definitely understand they are afraid.
Is this a topic of discussion in your family? Like after fleeing from Baku, have you ever discussed this event, this type of things, maybe already as an adult or teenager?
We were resettled to the United States in 92. And very, very seldom would it come up. If it came up, it was quickly closed with people walking out of the room, or tears, or just my parents could not. They could not relive it. We could not talk about it. I believe parts of them also, parts of the adults' memories wants to forget this. And it took me a very long time to compile my manuscript, not because I was not dedicated or interested or capable. I was illiterate for a long time in English. I could speak conversational English, but illiterate in grammar, reading, writing, to a level that you can sit down and produce a manuscript. And so occasionally I learned not to ask questions, because you could see it would hurt my parents and grandparents. I never would speak and ask questions of my uncle. I could not bear to see his suffering in hearing even the question. Forget answering, just even hearing it. When we would get together and have dinners, and here in our community, we would have Armenian parties and dinners. And of course, throughout the night, there's different tones, and we get to the portion of our toasts where we're remembering the loved ones who have passed. People it would come out of them. They would share language of grief and um, reminisce what occurred to them, and little by little would share a little bit of their survival strategy, journey, what happened, the chance and the luck of how they ended up alive. But in our own family, I understood I had to be a long-term good listener, because it wouldn't be like this. I would sit and have an interview with my traumatized family members. And I myself was very traumatized. I was also very psychologically, and still there is a lot of psychological things that I have to unpack and understand and grieve and heal, because this is not normal to live through. Even if you're a child or an older person, it's not normal. The human psyche is not designed to normalize such horror. We are supposed to be traumatized by it. That's the normal. So I would listen to my own family share, and in little bits put things together. In 2005, I came back to Armenia in 2005 with my family for the first time, and I was able to gather some photographs, document a few more shared testimonies from relatives who now had some ability to share. I was able to go to Geghard, where the school where my family took shelter. I was not allowed to really go in. It was summer, so it was closed. But a year and a half ago, we went back again to film for a documentary for my book. And at that time, I did get to go in and meet some of the administrators at the school, go into the storage room where my family lived. Now it's being remodeled for, I believe, a social service office. But at that time, I still felt like I'm in my home, quote unquote home, although it was different. But it was very healing. The staff at the school, they received me very well. I did promise them I will stay in touch and send the children books. It's been a little difficult to do this logistically with shipping and what's going on in the world. But they are very near and dear to me. But it took a long time to have the personal journey as a child to adolescent into adult. It was not until 2018 that I was ready to publish my manuscript. Having become a mother myself really motivated me to publish, because I knew within a generation of my grandparents' parents being gone, our survival story would also be gone. And if anything happened to me, my children living in this big new country, they only have each other and the story of their roots and of their Armenian families' survival of ethnic killings and genocide. And so I felt a sense of responsibility for my own children to produce this document, this memoir.
I wanted to ask, when did your family settle in Baku, and what do you remember about the Armenian community in Baku and everyday life there for Armenians?
Well, that's where I was born. And, that's where my parents were born. And prior to that, my father, his family, they are from Artsakh. And on my mother's side also, their roots are in Artsakh. And prior to that, in Ottoman Turkey. And they have their own, my ancestors, our great-grandparents, they have also their own survival story. I look at the generations, and for including myself, thank God, not my children. I prayed never they have this experience, but with myself included, for 6 generations in our family, we have a direct experience of genocide policy, uprooting, moving, resettling. This is not uncommon for Armenians in the world, but in our own family, that's the case. On my maternal side, my grandmother, her family, when they survived 1915 genocide, their exodus was to Cyprus, and from there to Uzbekistan. That's where my grandmother was born. But then they migrated to Baku because her father was a well-established oil rig operator. Wow. And the oil refineries in Baku, he was for work, they moved there. And so my mother then was born there, and our roots were there. The Armenian community in Baku was a minority, but it was the majority when it came to who worked the administrative positions, the management positions, the enterprise. I want to say that word is very careful. So any kind of like market responsibilities of selling or distribution. But of course, in the Soviet Union, this is not free enterprise. This is not entrepreneurial, like now entrepreneurial. But the Armenian population in Baku, although the minority, was a major network, thinkers, makers, producers. This is with the Soviet government, the hiring and the placing of these individuals into these positions. So much so that when in Baku, before the violent atrocities began, there was this kind of administrative purge of, people being fired from work, including people at like my mother's work, and being told, you are no longer going to be in the management position or the accounting position, or worse, don't come back. Just don't come back tomorrow. In fact, some employers, some very kind and compassionate employers or directors, I guess, at that time, who were Azeri, warned Armenians to not come back to work in 3 days and, maybe leave, because they knew what was happening. There was already this conversation happening in the mainstream, in the Azeri community, that there is going to be possibly this purge. It didn't just happen. It was organized and produced, the ethnic campaign, killing campaign. So the Armenian community in Baku, they were there even before, like my parents and grandparents, they were there before because of being merchants and on the trade routes. And before there was this nation called Azerbaijan, there were very indigenous communities that have been there. And they lived alongside their neighbors, like how we live alongside neighbors. There might have been some undertones of discrimination, and there was maybe some friction, but not to a point where it was violent. There were intermarriages, as you are probably aware. There are many families that the father or the mother, they are Armenian or Azerbaijan. And even religiously, because the Soviet Union was more of like atheistic system, there was not so much of this religious identity to have friction until it became part of the rhetoric, and until it became part of nationalism, and it became fueled. So there was the Armenian church in Baku, and we had our traditions and preserved the language and preserved our customs and musicians and the arts and the culture. So much was produced in the arts from Baku artists, Armenian Baku artists. And these days, some of those artists are claimed by Azerbaijan to be Azerbaijani artists, but they are Armenian artists by ethnicity. They just happen to be born in Baku, like myself. I have Azerbaijan as a nationality on paperwork because of the Soviet time. And there's been times when the Azeri lobby or the Azeri consulate will claim that I am an Azeri citizen or uh, how do you say, claim to be an Azeri refugee and try to discredit or minimize or erase my Armenian identity, ethnic identity, because of, official paperwork and how we were classified.
You mentioned that you have some roots from Artsakh. I just wanted to ask, have you had the chance to visit Artsakh?
Unfortunately, I did not. Now, I might have as a child if when my parents and grandparents would go there and drive there. But with my adult lifetime, and I did not.
Yeah, hopefully someday.
Yeah.
And to wrap this up with, I wanted to ask if you could speak directly to your younger self, that Armenian child in Baku, what message would you give her today?
Oh, wow. That's a very powerful question. Very interesting question. I never thought about that. I think that for a very long time, I felt a sense of guilt for surviving because many children did not, many babies didn't survive. And then many mothers didn't survive, and now I'm a mother. So I know this very sacred honor to raise children and have children. So I think for a long time, I had a sense of like carrying a guilt for surviving as a child, or some type of, hard to describe, it's very hard for a child. Now I can understand it, of course, and be grateful for it, but it's very hard for a child to think that only by accident do they exist, like only by chance. Only by chance and by accident is the difference between their survival and another person's death. And the way that child's psychology development mind works too is you cannot dismiss the fact that the behavior of the adults, so I witnessed the behavior of the adults, whoever organized them, the government or outside influences or themselves, their behavior was such that in the end, the message I received as a child is that, well, you people, you, including you children, your lives are disposable. Your life is just like that easy to end and to clear. Like when I'm cleaning my house, the garbage, you just pick it up and you take it out. And that's what it felt like, is that society was my home. This was my home, our home, the only world I knew. So this world and this society was cleaning up what's disposable and throwing it away, or worse, killing. And so I carried that with me for a long time. So if I could tell that young child anything, I would say, do not feel guilty for surviving, and you are not disposable. You are sacred, and God creates humans, all humans, they are sacred. You are sacred and not disposable. And do not feel guilty. This is your birthright, like the right of every child and every human on this earth. I don't say they have to be from a specific background or have a specific religion. No, every human and every child in this life, on this earth, it is their birthright to live a life without violence.
And that's really powerful. Thank you so much. Thank you for connecting with us today. Let me just remind you that our guest today was Armenian-American author Liyah Babayan.